Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I am really excited to be here today with Virginie Goldstein. Is it Goldstein or Goldstein?
Goldstein, whatever works in this country.
what, what country are you from?
I'm from France. I'm from
Yeah,
Paris. My
awesome.
last name is not French, but yes, I'm from France.
Awesome. That's great.
I
I love
was
your
born
accent.
in Paris, suburb of Paris, and I grew up in Paris. Yeah, outside Paris in Paris. I did my school downtown Paris, and I worked in Paris before moving to California in 2000.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today. And this is another kind of one of those interviews where I have not yet met you at all or talked to you, only on email. So I'm very excited. So thanks for joining me in this format. I know it's a little bit weird, but I feel like I'm going to ask you these questions, and it would be the questions that the public would probably want to know from you too. So I figure we'll just kill two
Sure.
birds with one stone. And then once we get off, you can ask me more questions about me. But I'm excited to talk to you. So Virginie has a business called Tech Connect Reset, which I think I anticipate that our conversation today is going to be very, very relevant to what we're experiencing right now with all the distance learning and the shutdowns for schools and COVID-19. And so I don't think it could be like a better time to chat with you and see what it is that you do. So Virginia is a therapist, so she's licensed marriage and family therapist. And I would love to hear just kind of like about your business and just about your background and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Yes. So, like I said, I was born in France, so I'm from France, and I cannot hide my accent anyway. So,
That's all right. I don't think you need to.
um, so my background, I have two master degrees in like clinical psychopathology from Paris and a master in neuroscience. And then I graduated with a diploma of neuropsychologist. So back in France, I was neuropsychologist. I was allowed to do testing and therapy. I did research, a lot of work, with kids and adults back in France. When I moved here, I had a baby, but I went back to school in 2002, and then I finished with a MFT license.
It's not what I meant to do. Sorry.
I finished
Keep going.
I finished with the MFT license back in 2008. I've been in a practice. I started my internship in a practice back in 2004 or 5. And after I got licensed, I started working with this one of these local mental health agency that has a very good reputation. Let's say
That was
BACA.
team therapy, right? Oh, Baka. Okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
great. Okay.
BACA. So over there, I did a lot of work, and then we decided to open an intensive outpatient program for adolescents who were we are diagnosed with like severe anxiety, depression, we are suicidal, we are missing school. Um, so I created a whole program from scratch,
Wow.
uh, from the schedule. I wrote manual for each group's evidence-based approach. So I was trying to show like, can an intensive outpatient program, prevent relapse in hospitalization? So it did show. So I did a research 2014 and a follow-up in 2016, and it did show that there were like a decrease in relapse in hospitalization or visit to the ER for students who were like self-harming and who were suicidal, and it did and it I mean, some of the kids relapse in the hospital, but the rates was much lower than
Yeah.
they used to be. So, and then, but working, in IP with adolescents, we're like back in 2013, 14, we realized, oh my gosh, there is like so many more kids struggling, with the screen use. And to
Right.
the point where some kids, I remember like we had this 12-year-old, and that was the whole time where people were using Skype, and he was on Skype with this like stranger, and then the parents are like, horrified because this stranger was already like 40-year-old or something, and the kid didn't see the danger,
Right.
right? So that was one of the alerts already. We were like, using the screen is not like, not very safe. And then we had cases where kids were playing video games, League of Legends. And we had this case where, when the mom has the kid to stop using the screen, to using the video games, he jumped on the roof and said, I'm going to kill myself. So they called EMQ and 911, and then he was hospitalized. And then we decided to make review the rules at home while the kid was in the hospital, because the parents were afraid, to set new rules at home about screen use. You're not going to use your video games until you're done with your homework, and you have to make sure you stop the video games on time. Parents were scared. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
the kid is in the hospital, so that's the right opportunity for you, to set new rules at home. You have a support with us, the staff, and then we're helping you to help your child, to get back to a normal behavior, with the screen use. So we got more and more cases like that. So I decided to create a method to really address the screen addiction. So screen addiction is kind of the extreme, behavior, like with the, extreme behavior, like, when kids are using the screen, or even adults, right? But so I created this program. I created a method. I got the method copyrighted by the government, and I opened this program for screen addiction intensive outpatient program based on the experience I had before. I decided to create an outpatient program, because most of the programs that exist for kids who have screen addiction are inpatient program in other states.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I really would like to have the kids, to be able to change the behavior, to get back to a normal level of functioning while they stay home, and parents can come to the program, and we support everyone, right? And there is no interruption with school, because the problem when the kids are exported to an inpatient program, they have to stop school, or they have to start. I mean, I don't think it makes much difference now with COVID, because everybody's online. But at that time, so providing an intensive outpatient program to treat screen addiction, near the house was really, beneficial for the families.
Yeah.
So we had really good cases, and it was pretty helpful. And then in my practice, I helped families and students, to, address the bad habits with the screen. So I do a lot of coaching with families, with parents. I have parents who call me and say, my kid is using the screen at night, I cannot stop him, we escalate, it goes into big arguments at home, and we are tired of that. And then my kid is not doing school. So okay, so I have this protocol I'm using in my practice, where I work with families and teens. I'm not a kids therapist, but I also collaborate with the kids therapist. So if the kid has a therapist, so I work with the therapist, and I work, and myself, I work with the parents, directly. So we all work together. I have those programs that I'm planning to expand through California, and thanks to, the online services now, I feel anybody can get help with changing the behavior, this bad screen habits, these bad habits, with screen use. And really want to make sure everyone get the support they need, to get back to a normal level of functioning, to help families, to have better communication with their kids, while they are trying to, help them, to use the screen, in a healthy way. Because right now, parents don't know, parents are not coached, the kids, don't know what to do, and they have, it's not like the screen can be dangerous, but the screen is also a very important tool, in kids' life, and this is part of their life, and they don't always know how to use it in a healthy way. So last night I did a presentation talking about screen addiction and bad habits, with screen use. And then we talked about how we can help the kids to make the changes, be able to use the screen, with moderation, or that doesn't impact their life in a negative way. You need to start with communication. So for me, why I work with the parents is because they need support with communication. They need support with tools, to help their kids and say, hey, right now your screen, your bad habit with your screen, is impacting your success in life. And we're talking about these 6 areas that is so parents are asking me my kid has a screen addiction. How do you know that? How do we know kids are having bad habits with the screen? Well, there is like 6 areas. If you see that your child has issue, the behavior is having using the screen is impacting their school, or is in a negative way, or is impacting their activities, or their relationship with the family, or their social environment, and their sleep and appetites. So we need to change something, right? And when parents realize that, and say, my kid is spending too many hours on the screen, and then he's not doing his homework. And then parents get frustrated. So what do we do? So we meet together, we look at the situation. I also look at the situation and make sure like the child is not having an unsafe behavior, because unfortunately we've been dealing with a lot of sex text, cyberbullying, and parents don't know what to do with that. And the kids feel sometimes, some kids are like bullying other kids online, and they think it's fun, and they think it's funny, and it's not. And so on one side you have a kid who is a victim, on the other side you have the kid who is bullying the kids. You have situation where you have kids who deal drugs online, right? How can they get, can they get like marijuana or like Molly or other drugs, right?
Yeah.
And then there is this, there is like, a lot of sexual abuse not online, but like, like the abusers are going to reach, victims online, and they're going to meet outside the house. And we had situation where the kid was like, oh, I'm just having fun on Snapchat, I'm sending those cute pictures,
Right.
and then it gets worse, and then the kids become, leave the house, meet this guy outside the house, and get raped.
Right.
So so we want to make sure, like, so we look at the safety, with the child, but we're also looking at, just the general bad habits in general, like how they're using the screen in a way that damages them, that damages their success in life. And so we meet with the parents, we look at the situation, I look at the communication, because I keep telling the parents, we cannot change a child's behavior if the communication is poor at home. If you tell your child, now you need to stop using your screen at 10 p.m. and, parents, show their frustration, the kid is not going to listen to them. So we need to show respect. We need to show like, a healthy communication first, and then we can start establishing rules together.
Right.
So really, this is my mission, helping families, to get along better and to be able to let anyone use the screen at home in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Not, ending up in a situation where it's becoming a struggle, it's becoming conflict, it's becoming, tension at home. So the screen is part of everybody's life. Last week I watched the movie Social Dilemma. I don't know if you have watched that movie.
Yeah, I watched it this weekend. Yep.
This weekend. So
yeah, I did.
And I'm not surprised about it, but like what strikes me the most at the end, it's like when you have those high-tech CEOs say, my kid don't touch the screen. And then it brings me to the topic of like, okay, so kids are doing too much screen or nothing. And what does it remind me? It totally reminds me, personally, I don't like this politics where like, okay, we don't give the screen to the kids. And then when you hear and I really like this movie, I attached it to my website so people can watch it. But when the kids is like, when parents say, kids should not have social media until they're 16. And I'm like, what you have to understand is like the screen is at home already. It is inside the house. It is a kid's life since they were born. It is at home with the kids. It is at home with the parents. And how can parents say you cannot touch that until you're 16?
Right.
That's the same thing than, alcohol. And then when the kid is 16, parents would say, now you can use the social media. You're fine. You can take your phone and like use social media and it's fine. If there is no psychoeducation about it, the kid is going to be at risk.
Right. So what I hear you saying, you're saying it's not that they need to be completely restricted from it until they're a certain age, because that almost makes them want to do it more or go behind and sneak it, like sneaking sugar or something like that, or sneaking alcohol. What you're saying is there should be psychoeducation around building a healthy relationship with screens from an earlier age, because it's already there. And if you work on it like that, it will they are less likely to have an addictive or a negative relationship with screens.
Right.
Yeah. Or social media. Yeah.
And I see situation when, when people ask me about like, what is the bad behavior with screen time? Like, what if my kid is on the screen? It's like, it's not productive. I'm like, what do you mean when it's not productive? And people are telling me, my kid spend too much hours, and like, but like, is your kid functioning well? If your kid is successful at home, and I know a lot of kids have, they are struggling with depression, anxiety, ADHD, autism, but even with that, the kid can still have a good life and have a good relationship with the screen.
Right.
It's really, and I know for some parents it's very hard, like, the kid, a lot of kids who are in the autism spectrum, they go on the screen to connect, through video games, and they think they can make friends that way, or maybe they don't care about having friends, but they spend a lot of hours because it's a way for them, it's a shield, that protects them from their own anxiety, from the world. So parents, I know it's a lot of work for the parents. Maybe it's more work for the parents to help their kids, to succeed, because, there is the screen, and like, you have this like constant dopamine around them.
Right.
That is very, the screen is very attractive, and then people like to have fun, and it's very people are distracted from that. And yes, kids are at risk for like, less success, because they, instead of doing video games, they go on YouTube, right? Or they play their games, they play their video games. So like, I understand this is a lot of challenges for the parents, a lot of challenges for the kids, but it's a lot of challenges for the parents. So I really don't want the parents to give up.
Yeah.
I really want the parents to stay positive about, okay, if that doesn't work, and yes, nobody really has the recipe how to raise a child, with success, while they grew up, with the internet, with the screen, right? But I think, now people are more open to make changes, are more open to say, oh, okay, so I understand my kid is using the screen. I understand that it's okay to allow them to use the screen, with moderation, and I can help them to use the screen, in a healthy way. I also have to model, as a parent, I have to model the parents myself, that it has to be healthy, right?
Right.
Definitely
I was going to ask you, like, do you find that a lot of parents are also having to kind of tailor their own use of screen time in order to model for their children? Or are you finding that some parents might even think that they aren't as negatively impacted by their screen use as they think they are?
Yeah, and this is, as a clinician, it's actually I have more struggle with the parents than with the kids.
Yeah.
Because then I tell the parents, first of all, the foundation, how often do you have, meal time with your kids? Some parents have zero meal time, dinner time with their kids, So we need to reset that. And then once they have when they have dinner together, do they allow the screen on the table? Do they ask the kids to put the phone away? Do the family watch TV while they're eating dinner, having dinner together, right? So I think the parents need to be more aware of their own behavior. They are modeling the behavior. And they have to be maybe a little more firm in terms of, rules at home about, ensuring like healthy communication at home.
Right. We had a situation like that. My in-laws were in town, and we had a situation where we were trying to have a nice family dinner, but my stepsons, they're so not used to that it created a big to-do, I mean, they really kind of had meltdowns around having to sit and have dinner, because we didn't let them get up and go play their video games. And then they were like, but we don't, we're not used to this. Like, you always let us, so it's not, you can't like just all of a sudden be like, okay, now it's this, if they would, or what we could have done was prepared them for it ahead of time instead of just telling them, okay, come sit down, we're having dinner, no, you don't get any screens. It was more like we could have done a better job preparing them for that experience. But things don't just like change overnight, but it's kind of a gradual process of like setting new expectations and rules around when, family time versus time that you get screens and stuff like that. We could have avoided a situation in our house.
Yes, and then when we work with the parents, they maybe trying to model the healthy behavior is that, okay, maybe you make the changes at home. It's like everyone, the whole family together make the changes. And like you say,
Right.
you're not going to change the behavior, in one day. And so what we suggest with, to parents, it's like, so maybe this week, at least maybe if you start with one time a week, like maybe try to have 30 minutes together, or while you're sitting together and eating together, and ask to put the screen away, to put the phone away, and put some music on instead.
Yeah.
Right. And you start with once a week, and then you increase that to twice a week, and you also increase the time with no screen time, and you also model the behavior. I'm going to test myself and see if I'm able to stay with no screen for 1 hour a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Not checking my phone, not going on my computer, not checking my watch.
Right. And there are definitely, I want to talk about like some healthy behaviors that adults can have with their screens, like you're kind of getting to right now, and how they might model that for their kids. And so like for me, I know, our phones are out of the bedroom. They sleep outside of the bedroom. They don't come in the bedroom with us when we're going to bed. Some people have said like, don't check your phone first thing in the morning, give yourself some time to wake up before you check your phone. What are some other healthy habits for adults to kind of help them kind of take a little bit of time away from the screen and have a better, healthier relationship with it?
Yeah. So before giving suggestion, the first suggestion I would say is like, I always work on awareness first. We have to be aware about our behavior. So maybe we should check how many hours we spend on the phone ourselves, right? And then we start from there. If I spend 10 hours on my phone a day, like 10 hours a day on my phone, maybe I'm going to try to reduce that. Yeah. And like you say, maybe I'm going, so when can I reduce that time? And also knowing I'm raising children and I have to try to model the healthy behavior. So maybe, yes, in the morning, I don't have to like wake up and check my emails right away from my bed, Maybe I can have my coffee, and yes, some people are going to check the news online, or maybe they can tell themselves, I'm just going to check the news. I don't know. They have to be very, very, very specific about their goals. It's like, I'm just going to check the news. I'm not going to go on Facebook. I'm not going to go on, Instagram, right? So, and it's like maybe I'm not going to check my phone in the morning until, after my breakfast, right? Or until my kids wake up. And then when they wake up, we spend some time together. I know teenagers don't want to talk in the morning, but you can say hi, but they see you when you're not on your phone. So we have to be aware of that. And so I think it's like, the suggestions can be the same for everyone, but I think we need to like be aware of our own behavior first.
Right. And then and then the suggestion or the strategy that someone would use would kind of depend on where they were having the specific problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
But definitely what I would keep in mind is that if I have children around me, when I'm going to change my behavior will be mostly around them.
Right.
Right. Because you can also decide not to use your phone in the morning when they are not awake. They don't know you don't use your phone.
Right. Good point. There are so many questions that I have, but I don't actually have a lot because you've said so much. Like I didn't have to ask anything. You just said everything. But one thing I want to touch on is you talked about dopamine really briefly. And I think that this is a term that as psychologists, we throw around a lot. Like we know what that is because it's something that kind of comes up for us every day. And I'm going to use an example of something that just happened last night with dopamine. And then I just want to hear what you have to say a little bit about it, and where, you know, how, just kind of your experience with this, and just like explain it a little bit to our audience, because there is a huge relationship between dopamine and why we're addicted to our phones, and why we're addicted to social media and screens in general. And so last night, my 12-year-old stepson said, like, oh my gosh, I made this video on Scratch, which I'm not super familiar with, but he's like, I made this video on Scratch and I worked so hard on it, and I got like 200 views, and then a couple people commented and said that they liked it, and it felt so good. And oh boy, it felt so good that somebody liked something that I worked so hard on and put so much effort into, and they liked it, and it just felt so good. And I was like happy for him and totally cringing at the same time. You know,
Yes.
I was like, that's fantastic. However, you know, like, and so we actually had a conversation, and, you know, I first like praised him, like, oh, you did such a good job. And I love that you put so much effort into something, and that you're reaping that benefit. And that does feel so good, you know. And we talked about how when you say nice things to others, it makes you feel good. And we went through that whole thing. But then I said, you know, one of the reasons that social media and email and everything is so addicting is because every time you get a ping or a notification or a like, or you see that little red, you know, thing pop up, or the thing come across your screen, it gives you this feeling of, it gives you a hit of dopamine, and it gives you this feeling of pleasure. And I said, you know, what happens with kids, like you might, for this video, have gotten a lot of likes, and then you might post your next video and you might get less likes. And even though there's no real way to measure that, inside it doesn't feel as good. And some kids start to get very affected by people not liking their things, you know. And if people don't like it, you know, just like in The Social Dilemma, right? When that 8th grader, you know, she posted a picture, it didn't get a lot of likes in the first couple of seconds, so she took it down real quick and changed it to something else. And as soon as she started getting more positive feedback, she got this rush of dopamine, and it felt so much better. And that is what is so dangerous about, I think that is one of the most dangerous things about social media, is how much it can affect the way a child feels, you know. And that's kind of the discussion that we had, and you know, just kind of like starting to just kind of talk about that as these things come up. I mean, I'm glad he's sharing that, and I don't want to be negative about it, but I also want to kind of just give him this broader perspective as he starts his journey into social media, you know, starting with, you know, Scratch. So
yeah, it's this, the problem is like it creates this instant gratification. We are in a society where everything is instant gratification. And that's the problem. So they have to learn to be patient to earn, you know, to earn, you know, the I don't know, the positive feedback from people, the reward, right? It's like it's every time they do something, it has to be instant. They want something, they want to have, you know, I hear some kids, they already have one smartphone, and I'm not going to use brands, but like they have one brand and they are not happy with it. So can I have the other one? And like when I work with families, I'm like, yeah, so do you realize you already have a smartphone? You're not happy with the smartphone because you want a different brand. You know, it's like you're telling your parents, oh, I have this, I don't know, like this Honda car, sorry if I bring brands, you know, but then you want a Mercedes, right?
Right.
And the kid is like, no, that's not true. And I'm like, yeah, you already have something in your hand you can use and it's working, but it's not good enough.
Right.
So I feel it's like it makes the culture like instant gratification. It's not good enough. And the thing with the social media, where the kid has a like, so it's like, oh, I feel good about it, I feel happy, people like me. It's also like developing this like narcissistic society, right?
But I'm
um
wondering, like, when you're talking about instant gratification in this society that we're building that's based on this instant gratification and wanting something
mhm.
and needing that positive feedback or that reinforcement so quickly, like, what is this doing to our younger population?
Mhm.
What do you think? What do you feel like is the, consequence that we're seeing with this?
I don't know yet. I mean, we're already talking about this millennium generation, where they get a new job, everything has to be prepared for them, everything has to be like fine, and you're doing a good job, and then they cannot take any critics, it's like very hard. And so, and like, with these kids who are like, want something, they want something right away, it's instant gratification, and it developed this extreme behavior, like I'm super happy or I'm depressed,
Mm-hmm.
and like you saw in the movie Social Dilemma, they they make this correlation, like since 2010, depression, anxiety, and suicidal thought or behavior increased, a lot.
A lot, yeah.
And because, it really makes this feeling of, this behavior like to some very extreme. I'm very happy or I'm very depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
people don't learn, to be patient and then earn the thing, it's and just face themselves. It's like, oh, I should be happy with myself, not with what people think about me. And it's a society where, kids wait for the environment, to tell them who they are, how they are good people or not good people.
Mm-hmm.
So they are building this image of themselves, like based on others instead of themselves. And that's
This
why
is,
you saw
go ahead, keep going. That's why
and
what?
that's why you saw this kid on Social Dilemma, like, when this girl, left with this other guy, he was crumbled, right? And like, or like this girl, sorry, this girl was posting something, and then she had one negative comment. She went from like happy to depressed.
Yep.
Look,
Yep.
how is she? What is the foundation of her happiness?
Right.
Is it because of what she's building for herself, or is she doing things for others? Is she doing things for
Right.
the society?
Right. She's doing things to get feedback from others. She's not doing things because they intrinsically and internally feel good, right?
Right,
She's getting
right,
it from
right,
an external reinforcement. Yeah.
right.
Oh my gosh.
They
I
get
think
the reflect. They get the reflection of themselves, based on what people think outside themselves.
right,
And
right.
that's sad because it crushed them. It's instead of thinking about this is what I'm doing, this is who I am, and I should be happy with who I am.
Right.
It's it creates the opposite, and it creates
Yeah.
this society of like mood swings,
Right. Yeah,
instant
everybody's bipolar.
gratification. I mean, yeah, so let's stay positive about it. But yes, definitely, kids should be able to they should be able to be coached about, what does what does the screen do to them? How can they use it in a way they still feel happy at the end? And I
Right.
know with this dopamine thing, it's like it's hard to stop because it involves the reward pathway. There is some research that shows that, there is it involves some pathways in the brain that shows a lot of resistance to when we stop the behavior. And they want more
Right.
and more and more.
Right.
And I was talking to this student and she goes, I don't like cigarettes, but like the other day I tried a cigarette, and then even though I don't like it, it made me feel I wanted to take another one because, that was the receptors of nicotine that were activated.
Right.
And so that's the same thing with dopamine. It's like the feeling of joy, like of happiness. It's, of course we like that.
Yeah.
But they have to be able to build this happiness, to release this dopamine maybe with themselves,
Right. Right. And
not
yeah.
not based on other people.
Right. And that's why it's so important to be doing things that, I mean, it's not even that you can't do something that's on the screen, because I mean, now when we're like writing or, researching, there's a lot of stuff we are doing on a screen that is productive and that, where we have to use a lot of effort and a lot of persistence and consistency in order to get what
Mhm.
we want to get. Right. So it's not like it's all bad, but we also need to continue to like foster things that are off screens that are helping kids develop those same skills, like in sports and in music,
Mhm.
or uh, art, and things that are uh, serving their passions, but also, teaching them about discipline and practice, and working hard for something to get the result that you want. And we have to almost more consciously do that, because it is so easy to just provide a screen for something to do.
Right.
It's almost like we have to work harder.
Yeah, and I have my 16-year-old who is so she's in 11th grade, right? And so she created this TikTok, video, and apparently that was funny. I had to watch 3 times to understand that was funny. She goes, "Mom, look, after a few days, she got 50K reviews, 50K views."
Wow.
I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And the week after, she got almost 100,000
views. Wow.
But with her, I think she's okay. I mean, I hope so. I think she's okay with using the screen. She really did it because she wanted to create and do something funny.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
yes, she liked to have the positive feedback about, oh my gosh, I had so many views. But she also used the screen is creating this, this TikTok for fun.
Right.
And I don't think she would feel so. We talked about it because then there was this other girl who took her idea. She said, this girl took my idea on TikTok and then she created and she had a lot of views too, Mom. And I'm like, but what do you learn from that? Do you do that for yourself because this is fun? And I'm like, look, maybe this girl was inspired by you, so you're creative,
Mm-hmm.
So we want to, draw the attention to something positive about what kids do online.
Right. That sounds really similar to what my stepson experienced. Like he developed a game and he was happy that people liked it, but we had to have that same kind of conversation. It's very similar.
Yeah. But they have to make sure they are not caught into this, deception because they are disappointed because disappointment because they didn't have the number of they wanted. They had a negative feedback from someone. They should be the strong skill about, they should learn, to accept, negative feedback. They should learn to, and be happy with themselves. I do that because I like it. I take the risk to post it. Do I take the risk to post it because I like it, or do I take the risk to post it because I want so much Right. So using the screen, at a very young age, this is why parents should teach the kids why they use the screen. What is the purpose?
So let's get back to, because we only have a couple more minutes to chat. Let's get back to, so in your business, Tech Connect Reset, you're really coaching the parents. So the kids might have another therapist. Do you provide therapists in your practice for that?
I have one intern and she's great. And then she can help with that. My focus is definitely with the parents. So I meet with the parents and I assess the situation and we develop a treatment plan, right? And in this treatment plan, we are doing a combination of parent coaching, parent session. Then sometimes the kids come to session because I like to meet the child as well. And I like to hear the kids, because my parents did this and then they broke my phone and this and then I hear that, I didn't know that, So and it helps me to, so meeting with the child, it helps me to get his voice and understand who this is kid, right? Mm-hmm. And but then most of the time I meet with the parents. Sometimes I meet with the kids alone as well, and we also do family sessions. But the majority of the work is with the parents because they need coaching.
That's great. And then how, depending on the treatment plan, maybe what is the kind of scope of time of your treatment plans? I'm sure that they differ for every family, but when you develop a treatment plan with them, are you thinking that there's a certain amount of time, and what is that usually, or is it just totally all over?
Yeah, it depends on the severity of the problem, right? Mm-hmm. But I think if parents are following through pretty well and this is pretty well structured, if this is an issue that is moderate to severe, I mean not screen addiction, but the behavior using the screen is really impacting the kid's success and impacting the family, I would say 8 weeks and a session once a week, and I communicate with the family online. So if people are comfortable using Google Sheet, we don't put, I'm sorry if I say that by the way, but like the Google, the Google
Yeah,
Charts. So what we do is we don't put any confidential information. We don't put diagnosis. We just share, the Google chart together.
Yeah.
We make the chart together on the screen because right now we're doing a lot of Zoom visits.
Mm-hmm.
And then we build the chart together. We set the goals and I teach them to make very clear goals and clear expectations. So there won't be any surprise for anyone.
Right.
And then they track the goals during the week. And the advantage of using Google Sheet is that I can check their progress during the week. They don't have to send me an email about how they're doing. They don't have to worry about it. So I think the only worry they have to think about is like to make sure they track the behavior on the chart.
Right.
And then the week after when we meet, we check the chart together, or I can check, and we can put small messages on the chart during the week so that we don't have to send emails or we don't have to give phone calls. So I try to be efficient that way.
Yeah, I love that you are doing like data tracking throughout the week, and really, because I find it really holds, like it's not enough to just, it's not like the once a week with you is going to be the thing that makes the difference. It's all the work that they do at home. And by having something that they're continually like responsible for at home, I think would help families feel like, it's rewarding to know that you're doing something and that somebody's going to check it. It's kind of like being a student in school, but it helps, because it's very hard to make changes in families, and so that's probably really a helpful technique.
Yes, and the next plan, the plan is already in place, and I tried to start that and it was in the middle of COVID, and it never worked. But so the next plan is to really expand services like throughout California, where we would do groups of 8 weeks program. It's like a mini IOP where, there will be one group for teens, one group for parents, and then in the same week, one group for teens, one group for parents, and one group for teens and parents together. Plus one individual session a week with the teens and one individual session with the parents to customize, the goals. And we would do this program for 8 weeks. And so the goal is to do that in groups. So hopefully we'll be able to do that face-to-face at some point, but right now we can still do that on Zoom. And then we'll be specific to the age range. So there will be like 8-week groups for like 10-year-olds, 8-week groups for like 12 or 10 to 12, depending on how many people we have. We would do like small groups, even though this is going to be through Zoom, but we would do maybe 8 kids, per group. And then we would like work together and then support each other together to really help the kids to make the changes and come to the realization, this is what I need to change to be able to continue to use my screen without, having any conflict with my family, and be able to be successful.
Yeah. I love it. So you're doing both individual with families, and then you are building out the next phase of your program is to do it in groups and have this kind of more intensive with groups. I love it. And so
the major goal is to be able to like maybe train different therapists on that so that they can use the method themselves, in different areas of the US, because this is an important topic we need to address.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. So tell me how people find you.
All right. So I created this website, Tech Connect Reset. I'm developing the social media, through right now it's only word from mouth, and right now I'm doing more, talk for parents. I'm doing talk for professionals, and thanks to the online, video conferences, we can reach more people at a time. So, which is great. So, I'm doing presentation. We're trying to use the social media.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I really thank you for doing this with me, and we'll have to have another call, like just on the phone, where I can tell you about my practice.
Yes, maybe I can interview you too.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, and I work with a lot of kids and families who have these exact issues, and I'm, doing their assessments. I'm doing their psychoeducational or school neuropsych assessments, and trying to figure out where the problem areas are. And oftentimes, and the reason that I'm doing these videos is because oftentimes I mean, I would say, 99.9% of the time, I am referring my clients out, whether it's the kids or the parents or both. I'm referring them out to other
Wow.
providers in the area, right? So I really want to know who's out there and who's doing what and what are their specialties, because I feel like, my goal is to get children and families the help they need in the most efficient and effective way. And so this is my way of like making sure that I'm getting to know who's out there so that I can
That's
help
good.
to connect people. Yeah.
It's nice. We need to work together. Like, it's too, the community is, the community is better, but it's still like too scattered,
Yeah. And I feel like
And
everybody has a specialty, right? Like everybody has that niche of that type of family or that type of client or that issue that they feel really passionate and strongly about and do the best with. And the best work is done when people are matched up with who they are the best match with, right? It's like that in relationship. It's like that with, service providers. So
So this video, are you going to post it somewhere, or?
Yeah, I post these on YouTube, and I'll post it on a podcast called Edu Switchboard. And so you can, I'll send you the link so that you have them, and I'll send you this so you can do whatever you want with it.
I mean, that's so nice.
Oh, you're welcome. Goodbye, audience. Yes. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me.
You're welcome.